April, Dutch Shell has filed a criminal complaint against a former senior employee over suspected bribes in the 2011 sale of an oil field in Nigeria. Dutch prosecutors confirmed they had received the complaint against Peter Robinson, a former vice president for sub-Saharan Africa. This comes at a time when the multinational oil and gas company and several former executives are already facing a criminal trial in Milan over an alleged bribery scheme related to the separate purchase of a Nigerian oil block. Let's get more details from Deji Badmas, who's live for us in Lagos. Deji, first off, tell us more about this controversial sale of block OML 42. Do we know who was involved, how much money was involved, and when it happened?
Well, it actually happened in 2011. Shell had been operating that oil block for a long time. As a matter of fact, it started in the 60s, and at some point it was making around, that block was actually producing around 250,000 barrels of oil per day. But sometime in 2005, Shell actually had to shut in that oil block because of security issues now in the Niger Delta. You know, the frequent attacks in the Niger Delta. Eventually, Shell decided to divest. It's an onshore oil block anyway. And as you know, what most of the IOCs here have been doing is they've been divesting their interest now in onshore oil, and they're actually going offshore, especially we're talking about deep sea offshore now. So Shell actually divested, sold that well. That well actually has about 5 oil fields. So sold it to a consortium, a Nigerian consortium now known as Nekonde. At the time, the purchase price was somewhere around $585 million. If you make some adjustments and what have you, it will probably come to around slightly less than that amount, but in the region of $500 million. That's how much it was sold for. And since then, Nekonde has been running it until this controversy now, until this latest controversy. And Nekonde is actually still running the oil well.
Right. So this local company, Nekonde, bought that oil field in February 2011. And now this scandal that everybody's talking about has emerged. Has this company responded to these allegations?
Not exactly. The company hasn't said anything. Don't forget, Penina, that what has been tabled, what has come out now, or what Shell has tabled before the Dutch authorities is basically complaints. So court cases, if you like, have actually not been filed yet. Nothing has been alleged against Nekonde, and I think it's standard practice that Nekonde would not speak until something, untoward now is alleged against Nekonde. If, for instance, Nekonde, if Nekonde was eventually accused of bribing this Shell official, you would expect that Nekonde would respond. But for now, nothing has come out of that company because no allegation has been leveled against the company.
So Shell says it's spoken to other authorities about this. Has there been any reaction from the Nigerian government on this issue?
Not exactly. The Nigerian government has not reacted at all. And let me just say something about OML 42. I mean, the oil well, as you know, the tradition in this country, that oil well, a joint venture between the Nigerian government and Shell controlling 45% and the Nigerian government controlling 55%. So what Shell did was to sell its own 45% to this consortium of domestic companies, if you like. And so I don't think the government would be in a hurry to want to comment, because the government would basically say, well, these does not directly affect it. The 45% stake that Shell sold now does not belong to the government. As we speak today, Nekonde is controlling that 45%. The federal government of Nigeria still retains 55% interest on the oil well. So nothing has actually come out of the government. Maybe as we go on, Penina, the government might be forced to say something and probably investigate if if there was any underhand dealing now in the sale of that oil, the sale of Shell's stake now in the oil block.
Explain something to us, Deji. What role, if any, does the Nigerian government play in regulating transactions of these oil fields to curb corruption cases like this one?
Well, usually there are a set of rules that must be followed, and what I want to believe is the belief would be that these rules were actually complied with at the time. For instance, it just would not be appropriate to sell to a company, for instance, that would not have the financial muscle now to run the operations of the oil well. Now, I'm talking about the oil exploration process now. I think Nekonde met that process. What I think is that is an issue here is that during the sale, probably, and that is what this complaint is about, that during the sale, some kind of money exchange hands. There's a possibility that, you know, there were other bids as well, but then the management of Shell, then, we're talking about this individual now that has been mentioned, Peter Robinson, probably, we do not know until the details come out, probably favored one bid over the other. We do not know yet. So until these details come out, and I think as more details come out, the Nigerian government will definitely want to investigate if any rule at all was breached in the process. I think the EFCC might be asked to investigate, but for now we do not know at all if any rule was breached. Of course, there are certain set of rules now that would normally be followed before any transaction is carried out. You don't just go on to say you want to sell an oil well now to anybody you please, even though the oil well, you have the stake, it's your stake, but you just don't go on to sell the way you please. And as you know, that's also an issue involving the sale, the controversial sale now of the other famous oil well. That's OML 245.
All right, Deji, we shall watch out for these developments. Thank you for joining us, Deji Badmas, live for us in Lagos.